Come on. Hey guys, welcome back to The Outdoor Pursuit. My name is Juan, and in today's video, we're going to talk about bait finesse systems, aka BFS. What are the similarities between BFS and spinning gear? What are the pros and cons? But the real question I want to answer is BFS right for you? Stick around. Let's talk about the similarities between both BFS and spinning gear. Both techniques are designed to cast and handle extremely light lures. That is the essence of finesse fishing. Both can handle little micro crankbaits, little Ned rigs, micro jigs, and of course the underspin, one of my favorites to throw. So in essence, there's really not much difference between spinning gear and BFS gear as far as the lure presentation that you're going to throw. Another key component why they're both very similar, especially when they're paired up with the right rod, is that they're highly sensitive. In other words, you can feel that subtle bite at the end of your line, especially if you're fishing for a smaller species like trout or panfish, or you're fishing for bass in winter when the fish are more lethargic and you don't feel that thump like you would in spring or in summer or even early fall. Now let's talk about the key differences, and there's not many. There's a lot of similarities, but not very many differences. Aside from the obvious, the physical design of each, the BFS reel has a shallow spool that allows you to have better line management. But that's a double-edged sword. Because you have better line management and because it's highly sensitive and not as forgiving as your spinning gear, there is a learning curve on how to use it. The shallow spool coupled with the components, the lightweight components, requires a more precise way of casting, completely different than your spinning gear. You can't power cast with the BFS reel. You cannot overhand cast because you're going to blow up your spool. It's more like a flick or a crossbody cast. Because of the shallow spool and the components, the lightweight components, your lightweight lure will fly out. But there is a learning curve that takes time because you also need to finely tune your reel. It's not going to work correctly if it's not tuned for the type of lure that you're using, because they're so lightweight. So you need to make sure that everything is somewhat perfect before you use your BFS setup. And if you don't do all that stuff, you're gonna end up being frustrated with it and just gonna put it down. So in order to complete our analysis of BFS gear, we need to talk about some of the cons. Now we talked about that there's a steep learning curve when using BFS gear. Now you can't power cast, that's for sure. It's more of a subtle flick of the wrist. You need to be a little bit more precise with your casting. So it's really good for target fishing. If you have specific targets that are near you and you want to give a subtle presentation. Now, another con about it is that because it's so specialized and you need a special reel and you need a special rod because you can't fish it with a medium heavy or even a medium light. It has to be a specialized BFS rod. Because of that, there is a higher price point. It is going to cost you some money. I think my setup, and I have the Corrado BFS with a Dobbins rod, and I think my price point there, my cost was about $350. And that's pretty steep for some people. It was steep for me, but you can't really go with the less expensive stuff because it really doesn't work well. From what I've read, I haven't tested it myself, but I've read that the components don't work well, and then you'll just end up frustrated. So you need to be aware of these cons before you get into it. Now let's talk about who would benefit with BFS gear. If you're the type of fisherman that likes to fish multi-species, if you like to fish for trout, you like to fish for panfish, bluegill, sunfish, or any other small species, it's perfect for you. If your fisheries, your waters are clear and you need to present something subtle where there's high visibility, BFS is great for that. If you like sight fishing for bass and you want the fish is looking at you and you're looking at them, they know you're there, and you want to present something that doesn't make a big splash, BFS is awesome for that. So one final thought, and really we want to answer the question, is BFS gear right for you? That all depends on you. That all depends on the type of fisherman that you are and how you approach fishing. For my perspective and the example that I have and how I view BFS, after a year and a half of using it, the true essence, the true reason why I like it, it's because it's fun. It's fun to fish. The highly sensitivity, the fact that you're using a bait caster with extremely light lures is really fun to use. When you catch fish, when you catch a 1 pounder or a 2 pounder, at the under end of the line, it feels like a 5 pounder and you're fighting that fish. I mean, you're actually fighting it. When you're power fishing with your regular bait casting gear, I mean, it takes you about 3 seconds to reel that fish in because you know you're not going to break and you know that your reel can handle it. But when you're fishing with BFS gear, it's a fight, and you've got a click drag system on this that just makes it even better, right? So you just can't boat flip a fish on the bank. You really have to fight them and tire them, and then you can bring him in. So I think the true reason why I use BFS gear, and maybe you should kind of look into it from that perspective, is that it's fun, because there's really no difference between your spinning gear and your BFS gear. They both do the same thing. It's just that one's a little bit more fun to fish than the other one. Okay, that's all I have, guys. I really want you to leave some comments. I'm interested in how you feel and if you have fished BFS gear, especially with what lures you're using. I think everybody within the community would appreciate your comments. If you like the video, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you next time. You guys take care.